What is up, everybody? It's your boy Jermaine Event, main on MMA, and today we are checking out a video from the GOAT, ITP MMA live, potentially. I think there's a couple channels. This is ITP MMA live, and we are looking into this Arman Tsarukyan situation. He pulled out of the fight with Islam right before weigh-ins. Like I said, 1 o'clock in the morning. He called the UFC and let them know that he had a problem with his back. And I've seen a few people posting saying, like, Arman faked the injury. People are surmising that Arman Tsarukyan faked his injury and he did not actually hurt his back, but that, well, there's a few theories. You know, I spoke on the previous video about how he was trying to show off for Nina drama, spinning on his head, like just weirdness. But let's look into ITP MMA Live's video. Arman Tsarukyan wasn't injured, to see his theories on what may have happened before the night before, or 2 nights. Well, pretty much the night before UFC 311. When Arman Tsarukyan pulled out. Let's check it out.
All right, so UFC 311 just went down this past Saturday, and honestly, it was a great event with a lot of really entertaining fights. However, the biggest storyline going into the event is the fact that the original challenger for the lightweight title, Arman Tsarukyan, was pulled from the card just 1 day before the fight was set to take place due to an injury that he suffered to his back. But the thing is, just based on some key details about what we saw during the last few weeks, as well as the way that Dana White is responding to Tsarukyan's supposed injury, I'm really questioning if he was ever really injured at all, and I think that the UFC might be covering up the real reason for why he was removed from the event by simply saying that he got hurt. And mind you, this video is going to be a whole lot of speculation, so put on your tinfoil hats and let's jump into this conspiracy. Now, before I go any further, I want you guys to watch this clip that came out this Monday on the Ariel Helwani show.
Everything was good. Then, like, last day, Wednesday, after training, I went to sleep and I started to feel my lower back. And when I started my weight cut, I was doing bike, and like that moment my back like stuck, you know, and I couldn't move. I just lay down on the hot tub. It was crazy pain. I couldn't do cardio, and then UFC doctors came and started to help me do some PT, and they said, you're gonna be all right in the morning. If you're gonna feel the same, you can continue cut your weight. So
according to Arman, he severely injured his back during his weight cut while riding a stationary bicycle. First of all, this story in and of itself sounds pretty crazy. Unbelievable to me, because honestly, what high level...
I sometimes get foot cramps. I have a stationary bike right over here, and I sometimes get foot cramps because I was going on, like, when I first got this thing, it's an Echelon, I was going on like 2-hour bike rides, like 45 miles. I was trying to hit 50. But then usually after the first hour, my foot starts to cramp up. And yeah, I've never had a back injury from on this stationary bike. Well, my ass hurts. These seats are the most uncomfortable. Like when I used to go to Hot Works, the stationary bike there hurts your ass like a motherfucker. I put like multiple cushions. I bought a cushion seat. Like there's a cushion I put on that seat. Yeah, actually. There is a cushion on that seat. And then I got to put more cushion. I put towels on top of that seat because it fucking hurts my ass like no other when I'm sitting on that stationary bike. So if he's saying, oh, I feel like I was assaulted, if you will, after sitting on the stationary bike too long, I think Arman is telling the truth, because I have I've experienced it. It's hard to walk. I'm walking around looking like, who's that nigga? Yosemite Sam, like with them fucking pants. That's how I gotta walk after I get off this stationary bike sometimes. But I agree with that. He could have hurt himself on the stationary bike because this shit is not built for real niggas to sit on. It's just not.
Professional athlete would injure themselves while riding a stationary bike. And I know that some of you guys are probably going to say that throwing out your back can happen at any given moment, and yes, I understand that, I get that, but this guy Arman is straight up one of the most flexible and physically fit guys in the entire UFC, so the idea of him pulling a muscle in his back while doing something that my 63-year-old mom does just doesn't track with me. Like, you're telling me that the guy that can do all this circus monkey shit for his warm-ups can get hurt while riding a bike? Like, I would have a much easier time believing that Tsarukyan Tsarukyan injured himself
Right
while
here.
making that weird video with him and Nina Drama where he says a lot of sexual innuendos like every other sentence?
Your turn.
Yeah, I heard you, okay? You can't just rush into these things.
You gotta do warm up with your neck, or you came already warm.
Not only that, Arman and his coach seem to have conflicting stories when it comes to Arman's
weird.
condition during fight week. According to Arman, he felt good and ready, whereas his coach Pahumpa said that his back got injured during his last sparring session of his fight camp.
When, I guess, was their first
why are there
real
conflicting
worry
stories?
that Arman might not be able to make it to the fight?
Well, we have to go back a little bit. Like last Tuesday, he had the last sparring session, and he tweaked his back a little bit. It was not too bad, and we thought there's going to be, just the end of the camp, the body's feeling it. And then he took a few days off, and he was fine. And then we started fight week. Everything was going great. The spasm, the pain was there, but he was, powering through it, he never thought about not fighting.
So him acting like a clown doing all this nonsense for Nina Drama was fine, him doing the open workouts was fine, and him shooting the basketball around during the NBA game was fine. It was only up until the point where he got on the bike did the injury become an issue. I seriously don't buy it, and sure, maybe riding the stationary bike was the straw that broke the camel's back or whatever, but the point remains that if he was dealing with a lingering injury that was bothering him since his training camp, then why is he doing all of these physically taxing activities that would only exacerbate his injury leading up to the biggest fight of his entire life? Like, by no means were any of the things that we saw him doing during fight week mandatory, so if his back really was in pain, then at minimum he was stupid for doing all of the things that he did. I really think that the story of him getting injured during the absolute most mundane of exercises is a low effort lie that really doesn't hold up even under the slightest bit of scrutiny. With that being said, check out what Dana had to say about if Arman was going to get the next title shot after he was fully healed from his injury.
Arman Tsarukyan, what do you do with him at this point? I mean, do you automatically rebook him in the next title fight? Do you go back to the drawing board?
No.
Yeah, he's going back to the drawing board. I don't want anybody to ever fight hurt, ever. We've been in these positions before. Went down there with the doctor. Went down there with Heather from the PI, who is, you can ask any fighter or anybody else. She's the best in the world. And, you miss opportunities sometimes, and he did. So we'll see how this plays out for him next year.
You feel like he could have competed? You feel like he could have competed tonight?
I have no idea. I don't know that. Only he knows that.
Dana says that Tsarukyan is going to have to fight his way back to the title, which is kind of a weird thing to say about the literal #1 ranked guy in the division. But something that really stood out to me from Dana's response here is how he says that we'll see how this plays out for him next year. Next year, as in Arman's going to be out of competition for a whole year just because he threw out his back? Let's be real here. I don't care if he pulled every single muscle in.
I thought he misspoke when he said that because it's January. Why would he say next year? I think he completely misspoke.
In his body, there is no way it would take a whole year for his whole body to recover, let alone just his back. Also, does anybody get a weird feeling of disdain coming from Dana here? I might be reaching, but I feel like there's a sense of annoyance or aggravation in Dana's voice and face as he's talking about Arman. I don't know, there's something about the way that Dana gives his statement where it doesn't feel like he's talking about a guy that suffered a freak injury. It feels more like he's talking about a guy who made his life more stressful when it didn't have to be, and Dana making Arman fight his way back up to the title is his punishment for it. And what makes things even weirder to me is that in response to Dana's comments, Arman is in full agreement with him. Like, this guy that just had his title shot ripped away from him for a supposed injury just has no objections to being thrown back into the shark-infested waters that is the UFC lightweight division. After all the hard work that he put into getting into this position, it just seems bizarre to me that he'd be so agreeable to being passed up on the next title shot, unless, of course, he knows that he fucked up in some way, shape, or form, and knows that he's not in any position to be talking back to the boss. All of this sounds extremely fishy to me, but I just want you guys to put a pin in this for now. Because first I want to address a pretty commonly accepted theory that instead of getting injured, Arman actually didn't make the weight. Now, I find this to be much more likely to be the truth of the situation than the story that he and Dana are trying to convince us to believe. In fact, I've barely seen any UFC fans online actually believe what Dana is saying at face value. From my experience, most people subscribe to the idea that Arman knew he wasn't going to make weight and told Dana, then they came up with a simple little story of him getting hurt to make him look better in the eyes of the world. Now, admittedly, there's not a whole lot of evidence to back up this claim beyond plain old speculation. I mean, there is this video that he uploaded a month ago where he's scarfing down an ungodly amount of Dave's hot chicken just a couple of weeks before weighing in. I've also seen people comment on the food that his chef was serving him in episode 2 of UFC Embedded, where instead of eating chicken and salad like Umar and Islam were, Arman was eating pasta with cheese on it. Now, obviously, I don't find this to be damningly incriminating indicators that Tsarukyan blew weight, but at least in my very subjective opinion, this is easier for me to believe than him tweaking his back while on a stationary bicycle. Arman really is a pretty big lightweight, and seeing as he's not even 30 years old, I don't think it's unreasonable to wonder if he's outgrown his ability to make 155. And just looking back at his career, Arman has already missed weight in the UFC when he fought Matt Frevola in 2021, so it really could just be as simple as him not preparing for the weight cut adequately. Now, with all this out of the way, I personally think it's possible that Arman might have failed a pre-fight drug test and was thus pulled from the card. You might be asking me what evidence I have to base this on. Well, honestly, I really don't have any, just my own tinfoil hat speculations. But the thing is, the UFC's new testing protocols don't require positive tests to be revealed, so in the current era of drug testing, fighters can get suspended for PED usage without us ever getting confirmation on it. So as we have here in the case of Arman, he can get pulled from the card one day before the event due to popping for steroids, and to save face, Dana and the UFC can simply say it was because of a mysterious, bizarre injury. Moreover, just going back to Dana's statement during the post-fight press conference, how and why is Dana so sure that it's going to take a full year for Arman to return to competition?
We'll see how this plays out for him next year.
I mean, sure, this could be Dana misspeaking because it's still the beginning of the year, so maybe he was referring to next year as this year, but honestly, I kind of get the feeling that he slipped out some information that he shouldn't have. Because at no point has Arman or his coach or his manager ever intimated that he would be out until next year, nor have they even provided a timetable for his return, so the fact that Dana of all people is the one declaring that he's going to be out for a full year definitely makes me question if he knows something that we don't. Obviously, I am no doctor, nor do I know the intricacies of human anatomy, but I just can't wrap my head around the idea that Arman's going to be out for a year because he pulled his back. Also, I think it's mighty suspicious that the UFC doctors weren't able to find anything wrong with his back during an MRI, even though MRIs are able to detect pulled muscles. So the only piece of evidence to back up Arman's claims that he was injured is his own word that his back was hurting really bad, despite doctors supposedly not being able to find anything wrong with it. And even in spite of these same UFC doctors not being able to find anything wrong with Arman's back, we have Dana White saying that Arman is so injured that he's going to be out for a full year. This really doesn't add up at all. And not only that, man, just look at the dude. Listen, I know better than to look at a fighter's physique and write them off as a PED user, because who knows, maybe there are some athletes that are truly that genetically gifted where they look like...
His chest does look kind of like some gyno. I was looking at that before this video, just leading up to it. I was looking at pictures and I was like, it looks like he has gyno. But kind of like how Izzy had.
Greek gods without having to use steroids, so I will just say this. Given Arman's physique, along with his strength, speed, and endless cardio, it really wouldn't shock me in the slightest to learn that Arman is juicing. Okay, I guess I'll end this video off by saying that I agree that it's probably likely that Arman was pulled from the card because he knew he couldn't make the weight, but even then, that wouldn't explain why Dana would keep Arman on the sidelines for a whole year. I'm just saying, man, in the world that we live in where failing a drug test can be kept a secret from fans, I really wouldn't write off the idea that something like EPO was found in his system, and now he's forced to sit out for the remainder of the year. Anyways, that's the video for today. Definitely let me know what you think about the Arman Tsarukyan situation. Do you think...
Interesting theories, just theories, no real evidence, but it is interesting that Arman and his coach have two different stories of what happened, and both of those stories kind of conflict with Dana saying they brought the doctors in and they saw that he was okay, or that's what Arman said. They brought the doctors in and said that he could be okay. He's claiming he pulled his back on a stationary bike. I'm telling you, those seats are not set to suit a real nigga. You can't sit on them seats. I try to get 20 minutes on there if I can without my ass just being in so much pain. It's just, the seats it's just wrong. I wish they had like a bigger kind of like, not that kind of seat. That seat's just wrong. I need like a bigger flat seat that, like, fuck all that shit. Fuck that. Them stationary bikes are nasty. So I'm like, if Arman is saying he got hurt on a stationary bike, maybe that's what happened, because those things are brutal on the backside, ladies and gentlemen. But that's probably not what happened. He probably either missed weight, I think is more likely, especially with looking at him eating that plate of pasta cheesy pasta leading up to your fight, the biggest fight of your career, and then suddenly you get hurt, and you even admit that the doctors say, yo, you should be fine. You should be good to go. And then you pull out of the fight. Maybe he wasn't on weight. Maybe he popped. If Dana White didn't misspeak when he said next year, I didn't realize that they didn't have to disclose PED suspensions now with the new. I figured that, like with USADA just being like, well, nope, this guy tested positive, he's gone. Them just like so blatantly putting out these announcements, suspending Nick Diaz. They put it out there, and then what can you really do? Just be like, no. Let's not suspend him for that amount of time. You guys have already put it out there that you're doing it. So now they have a system where they don't even have to announce it. They can catch these people using and then just sweep it under the rug. Say whatever happened. Say he tweaked his back. We might not see him for another year. I don't know. But let me know in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. Do you agree with any of the theories there? Or any of the theories feeling more likely to you? Or are you with Arman? Do you feel like he just tweaked his back while on a stationary bike, and that's why he had to pull out of the fight even after the UFC staff told him he should be fine? Couldn't find anything wrong with him. You should be fine. Do you think that's what happened? Let me know in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys once again for being here. Shout out to ITP MMA Live for the cool theories. Let me know in the comments. As I said, gents, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and I will see you guys when I see you. I'll holla.